Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday and happy, it's an even better Friday because it is the Friday before a long weekend. So I hope everyone has some good Memorial Day plans coming up, some time to get some rest and rejuvenation. Looks like Northeast is going to be a little chilly, but the rest of the country is going to be sunny and warm. So my name is Jim Lamancusa. I'm the CEO of the Pet Sustainability Coalition. Thanks so much for joining us. So we have an active poll because we've noticed that it takes people a few minutes to get online, and sometimes Google Meet doesn't play well with Zoom, doesn't play well with Microsoft Teams. So just want to give people a few minutes to get online before I officially kick things off. Um, so I'm just going to riff a little bit. One of the interesting, I guess this morning started interestingly for me because I was reading CNN this morning and there was an article on the front page about how a new record was set, that a bird was found in the South Pacific with 778 pieces of plastic in its belly from eating ocean-bound plastics. And I was like blown away because literally we're having this webinar, we're kicking off this new activation today. And here I'm reading this article about this new record being set. The previous record was 403. So there's a pretty dramatic rise in animals eating ocean-bound plastics. So it really highlights the importance of what we're doing and kicking off for multiple reasons. But that was kind of like a serendipitous article to read in the morning. All right, we got some good poll responses coming through. I'm going to wait another minute or so and then I will get things started. All right, so thank you so much. I think we can end the poll now. That was super fascinating. So as far as are your customers asking you to take some action with your plastic packaging? It looks like 85% of you said that it's a recurring theme or occasionally. So this is clearly an issue that we're all facing. And then how familiar are you with the concept of verified plastic recovery? Only 38%. So we're excited that the rest of you are going to get a great education today. So thanks again for joining us. Today, we're going to kick off something truly powerful, Plastic Recovery July. This is a global effort to recover 250,000 pounds of plastic waste from nature and oceans. But it's not just about cleanup. It's also about creating long-term solutions that fund ethical waste recovery, support worker livelihoods, and help our industry walk the talk on sustainability. Let's face it, our products, our trade shows, our packaging, our supply chains, they do all leave a footprint. But what if we can turn that footprint into a force for good? That's what this campaign is about. And you're here because you care, because you know that sustainability is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. And when we come together as brands, retailers, suppliers, and industry leaders, we can create a ripple effect that stretches far beyond any single company. So thank you today. Thank you so much for showing up. I can't wait to share with you how you can be part of this movement and how together we can turn July into a month of massive, measurable impact. So let's dive in. Today's speakers, you have the pleasure of seeing me in my old self here running the show. Allison Reeser, our Director of Sustainability and Innovation, and Adi, the Chief Impact Officer of rePurpose Global. Today's agenda, we're going to be going through some announcements and welcome. We're going to introduce you to Plastic Recovery July, and then we're going to talk about how you can get involved and what you get for participation. So first of all, the Pet Sustainability Coalition, if you're on this call, you know who we are. I like to refresh people's memory and say that I simplify it down and say there's two main things that we exist for. We help individual companies advance your sustainability goals, and we help drive the entire industry forward by bringing together the coalition to tackle challenges that are too difficult for one company to do on their own. And that's what this coalition and this activation is about today, is the second one, is bringing us all together so that our impact becomes multiplied. As far as PSC goes, we've gone through a rapid evolution in the last year and a half. And I wanted to highlight one really important thing that we have done, two actually. So first is that we've changed our membership model to being a credit-based model. So companies with your membership, you get credits that you can allocate towards whatever's most important for your business. we found that this has been critical because every company can affect sustainability differently. And so we want to help you on your journey wherever you are. So you can use your credits for, again, for what's most important for your business. The second thing that we've evolved, which I might be even more proud about, is that we now have an in-house sustainability consulting team of experts. So we're no longer sending our projects and consulting out to for-profit sustainability firms. We're keeping them all in-house. And what this does is we can do more impact for less money with all of our brands. So if you haven't heard about these new evolutions, I just wanted to give you a quick insight, and you can talk to our member experience team more about them. So upcoming webinars and events, we're obviously on the Plastic Recovery July today. On June 25th, please mark your calendar because the next webinar is going to be an awesome one around circularity, led by Serious Business and the PSC consulting team. Some other announcements, Super Zoo, although it's crazy, it feels like global just finished, but Super Zoo is just around the corner. And so we will be hosting a networking event there. We'll be sending out an invitation to all of our members very shortly. We're also going to be featuring our accredited top performers in our booth. So I would love if you can stop by and see the top sustainability companies at PSC. And then we're launching our 2026 sponsorships by July this year. This has been a reoccurring request from our members because you all go through your budgeting process in September, October, November. And so we want to make sure that you know about opportunities to highlight your brand's sustainability efforts much earlier than you have in the past. So those will be published by July. A little bit of housekeeping. Please use the chat to say hello to everybody. And again, just build this coalition together. And then we also have the Q&A feature for you to ask any questions about Plastic Recovery July. So a little history on activations here at the Pet Sustainability Coalition. So the last few years, we have run what we call Earth Day Rally. It's always been in April, and it has been tremendously successful. It has been rallying the entire industry to take eco actions individually with your employees and your customers. And those actions are fantastic. Things like using a reusable water bottle, biking, or carpooling to work. What we have found is that these eco actions are so ubiquitous now in our culture, which is fantastic, is that this type of an activation is no longer necessary. And that's one of the reasons why we're moving on to this Plastic Recovery July. We're also really proud of our Flex Forward campaign that was a successful store pilot for store drop-off for flexible film packaging. So we're going to continue our work on what can we do to help brands with their flexible film packaging. And Allison's going to talk about the hierarchy of how we look at this plastic waste issue, and we'll get there in a little bit. So let's talk about Plastic Recovery July, what you're all here for. So the challenge, in 2019, PSC conducted a study and found that there was 300 million pounds of plastic packaging produced in the pet industry every year. And we know that the industry has grown significantly since 2019, so the issue is even greater now. 91 to 99% of it, depending on where you live, ends up in landfill, ocean, or nature. And that's why we're here, to make a difference. So Plastic Recovery July's goal is to recover 250,000 pounds of plastic in the month of July. And why should you be involved in this? What's in it for you? You will be part of a coalition-led effort for measurable waste reduction. Again, this is not about one individual company doing things on their own. It's about coming together as a team and doing this together. I'm incredibly proud and happy with the partnerships with rePurpose Global because between the PSC marketing team and rePurpose's marketing team, we have put together a huge tool of activation toolkit and templated opportunities for you to be able to tell this story. So even though July's around the corner and you might be thinking, well, I'm not sure I can join this because our team needs a lot of time to build this type of a content, you don't need that time. We have a toolkit for you of templated social posts, PR stories, employee emails that you can send. So it's literally a turnkey opportunity for you to get involved. So low lift and high impact. We have massive media exposure planned. We already have several publications that have committed to doing a feature story on this, both from the consumer perspective as well as pet industry specific. So any of our participating brands and members are going to see a huge return on investment. Last but not least, this is verified impact for planetary health. It supports incomes and safe working conditions for over 2,300 workers. So it's not just about recovering plastic, it's all about creating good working conditions and fair wages for some of the most hard-hit employees around the world. Now, I'm going to pass the baton now to Allison Reeser, the Director of Sustainability and Innovation, who's going to talk a little bit about how PSC is approaching plastics.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. So yes, I'm making a bit of a special guest appearance in today's webinar to, talk about how plastic recovery fits into PSC's broader strategy around packaging and sustainability. So plastic recovery is a super important piece of the puzzle, and we see recovery as sort of a last line of defense. Because ideally, packaging and products are designed with reduction and circularity in mind, so that they never become nature bound in the first place. And the pet industry is in what I like to call a bit of a plastic situation. So we rely on flexible plastic packaging because it's lightweight, it's durable, and most importantly, it keeps pet food fresh. And that last point really, really matters because ingredients inside of the bag contribute to 70 or more % of a product's total environmental footprint. So the packaging has to do its job really, really well, and plastic is efficient at it compared to other options. But this flexible plastic packaging really isn't recyclable today, and so a lot is ending up in landfill or even worse, in nature. So in the medium term, we really hope to see flexible plastic packaging being accepted in curbside recycling everywhere. And in order for that to happen, several system-wide things need to improve, which includes a broad transition to mono-material packaging, and the sortation and recycling facilities need to add infrastructure to accept and actually recycle this material. So this transition is already happening. We are so proud of the PSC members that participated in our packaging pledge to prioritize this transition. And we are continuing to work with all of our members and the entire industry to move to recycle-ready materials. What you see on screen here is a quick look at the full hierarchy PSC uses to guide our progress in packaging. So first, reducing the amount of material used. That means choosing thinner or smaller formats is the first thing. Then a transition to mono-material, as I mentioned, which is easier to recycle. And that material is often called recycle ready, and it's accepted for recycling in many store drop-off boxes, not your at-home bins. Next, you can increase the use of post-industrial recycled content. That's material from the manufacturing process that can be recovered. And then you can go a step further by adding post-consumer recycled content. But a super important note here is that this strategy relies on simultaneously increasing the supply of PCR plastic, because right now there's not enough of it if everyone wanted to make their packaging out of it. And then next, longer term, we look at innovating beyond recycling. So things like compostable packaging or refillable models, but keeping in mind that there are trade-offs with those solutions that need their own solutions. And then finally, where today's focus lies is investing in recovery programs to keep plastic out of nature. And of course, that last point is where PSC's Plastic Recovery July campaign with rePurpose Global comes in. In the short term, we can really have an immediate impact on what's already out there through recovery. And honestly, I'm so excited about this campaign. It is just a really powerful example of the pet industry stepping in to together create measurable impact right now, today, by intercepting plastic waste before it enters our oceans and our natural environments. So next, I'm actually going to introduce Jeremy Baker, the Chief Growth Officer at American Pet Products Association. And thanks to APPA's super generous support, we are amplifying this work through their matching funds. So Jeremy, over to you.
Thanks, Allison, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of the American Pet Products Association, I'm proud to share that APPA is a matching donor for the Pet Sustainability Coalition's Plastic Recovery July campaign. As the producers of Global Pet Expo, we see firsthand how powerful trade shows are in driving innovation, connection, and growth in our industry. They're where the next generation of pet products are launched, and increasingly those products are focused on sustainability. Last year, we were thrilled to debut the first ever sustainability pavilion at the Global Pet Expo. It was one of the most visited areas of the trade show floor, clear sign that sustainability is not just a trend, it's a priority for our industry. Brands are innovating, buyers are seeking solutions, and together we're making real progress. But we also know that trade shows, like any large-scale event, come with a footprint, especially when it comes to waste. That's why when the Pet Sustainability Coalition approached us with the opportunity to support plastic recovery in July, it was an easy yes for us. This initiative isn't just about offsetting some of the plastic waste generated by events like ours. It's about modeling what's possible when an industry comes together around a shared mission. With a goal of recovering 250,000 pounds of ocean and nature-bound plastics in a single month, PSC is showing us that bold action is not only needed, but it is achievable. We're proud to stand alongside PSC as a matching donor to help double the impact of every dollar contributed. Every $1 recovers 2 pounds of plastic, and our hope is that our contribution inspires companies across the pet industry to get involved. Sustainability is a journey, and like all journeys, it moves faster when we walk it together. APPA is committed to being a part of this solution, and we're excited to support the incredible campaign that turns waste into opportunity and intention into action. More importantly, we're excited to join this journey with all of you and look forward to great success over the months to come. Appreciate you guys, and thank you all for allowing us to be a part of this great mission.
Jeremy, thank you so much. And thank you for supporting this campaign. And thank you for supporting sustainability overall. Like what you guys have done at the Global Pet Expo, at the Pet Summit to focus on sustainability has really been game changing for us, as well as sustainability around the entire industry. So it is definitely by far from an industry partnership, the most powerful one. And just thank you to you and the team from the bottom of my heart.
Well, it's great to have a partnership with people that you love moving the bus ahead with, and you guys all do amazing things, and we're great to have you guys a partner with us.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy. All right, so now I get the pleasure of introducing Adi from rePurpose Global, who is going to take us through the activation event and how you guys can get involved and what verified plastic recovery means. So Adi, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. So excited for this collaboration. Before I jump into my presentation, I wanted to start off with a question because it's certainly close to my heart. A lot of you must be pet owners or pet parents. And so I wanted to ask you if you've had ever an experience with your pet swallowing something that they weren't supposed to. Drop a message in the chat if that's happened to you. Meet my pet. This is Maya, our Boston Terrier. She's my wife Snaya's world, and she does so all the time and often scares her mother and I to death. Once she's even swallowed an entire plastic tampon applicator that she found on the side of the street. Thankfully, everything was okay in that case. But of course, with all of the plastic waste that we've created and dumped into nature, we can't blame our pets or any animal for that matter for mistakenly thinking that this material that they see everywhere is food. 30% of all plastic is openly dumped into nature. And that's not counting any of the plastic that is landfilled or incinerated. And of course, it goes without saying that this has devastating impacts on animal life, killing millions of animals every single year who cannot differentiate from their food and the plastic garbage that we've dumped. But death by direct ingestion is merely the tip of the iceberg. We're still uncovering the impacts of plastics and particularly microplastics on the health of animals. For example, it's been found that microplastics can harbor antibiotic-resistant bacteria and pose an infection risk to not just animals, but pets. And also studies are establishing bladder cancer and other increased cancer rates in cats and dogs related to microplastic ingestion. The pet industry is a core contributor to the plastic problem. Every year, 300 million pounds of plastic packaging are put out into market by the pet industry alone. And of course, this isn't used by accident. In pet food, it's essential. Plastic is essential for keeping products fresh, to prevent contamination and ensure shelf stability, especially for high protein and high moisture formulas. And today, no scalable alternative offers the same performance at a similar cost. And so it's essential that plastic, it's not a no-brainer that plastic is still necessary in the short term. But as Alison mentioned, it doesn't mean that we can't take responsibility for its impact. So how are we doing on the fight against plastic waste? Newsflash, we are losing the battle by a lot. Plastic leaking into the oceans is projected to triple in the next 15 years if we continue the business as usual consumption patterns. But to me, that's not the depressing part. If you add up all of the current commitments by businesses and governments combined, and we like to give ourselves pats on the backs when we announce these commitments, the reality is that even if you assume all of these commitments are met, which is a big if in the first place, we will still only reduce the amount of plastic leaking into the oceans by under 10%. Let that sink in. Our collective ambition today is simply dwarfed by the scale and magnitude of the plastic problem. Before I introduce Plastic Recovery July, I thought I'd share a little bit about our story and how we got into this in the first place. I grew up in a city called Bangalore in India. When I was born, my home was called the Garden City of India. But by the time I came here to college in the US in 2015, 18 years or so later, it was called the Garbage City of India. The population more than doubled, but the waste consumption and importantly, the global exporting of waste meant that plastic pollution in the city increased by over 500%. And so sites like this became quite common on my way to school, where we started to see mounds of plastic trash pop up all over the city. And we saw cats, dogs, and even what we call at home in India, the sacred mother cow, eating plastic, often burning plastic trash. When I got to the US for university, I decided to research and dig into this problem a little bit more deeply. With my co-founders now, I did my honors thesis on the topic of plastic pollution, trying to design solutions. Over 18 months of research, we set about trying to understand the problem as deeply as we could. We spoke to anyone that was willing to speak to us, and more importantly, went wherever we could to better understand the problem. We went into dump sites where plastic was being openly dumped, like this one in this picture. And it is important that we studied plastic from a global perspective because, of course, the reality is that once plastic reaches the oceans, it becomes everyone's problem. But plastic is very disproportionately leaking into nature. 80% of plastic leaks into the oceans from 1,000 rivers alone, mostly in South and Southeast Asia. India, my home country, is the #1 source now of plastic leaking into nature and into the oceans. So the reality is we can solve for domestic recycling here in the US and do all we can, and still might not end up making a dent in plastic in nature, which is, of course, having all of these detrimental impacts on animals and nature and the planet as a whole. Now, our research took us into informal dump sites like this to understand how plastic was getting dumped there in the first place. We embedded ourselves doing research in the informal waste sector, which employs millions of waste workers across the world from some of the most historically marginalized groups who are playing a really crucial role in that they are serving as the entry point for recycling. But as some of these visuals might show you, they're doing so at immense cost to themselves, working in conditions that I fundamentally think should not exist as they are. When we interacted and interviewed some of these workers, we found stories that are horrible, and I can go on all day about them. They told us about how they got into waste picking as early as age 3 or 4, and how children in waste picking were getting addicted to drugs and alcohol by just age 8 or 9, because being high or being drunk is the only way they could deal with the reality of living with trash all around them. But of course, informal waste picking is not just an India problem where it's untouchable, quote unquote, castes that are deemed responsible for dealing with society's waste. In the streets of New York, where I just moved to, it's undocumented immigrants who are rummaging through trash with their bare hands to salvage out recyclables like cans. So the reality is that it is a global phenomenon that we offload the burdens of our consumption onto the bottom of the pyramid of society. But plastic is not just having an impact on the workers who are on the front lines dealing with it. We're barely scratching the surface and building an understanding of the health effects of plastic on all of us, every single one of us. A new study found that each of us has approximately a spoonful of microplastic inside our brains. And while the science is not confirmed yet, I can probably assume that that is not going to be very good for our health. And as a result, consumers worldwide are fed up. They are demanding action and real change from businesses and holding accountable the brands that are putting all of this plastic into the world, and also at the same time, rewarding the brands that are doing the right thing. Last year alone, sustainable products grew 5x faster than regular ones. And so the good news we found in our research is that plastic pollution can be solved in our lifetime. But, and it's an important but, the problem is too massive to wait on any one solution alone. We need a multi-pronged approach adopted by the primary culprits, many of us in this Zoom room today, the businesses who are putting all of this plastic waste out into nature. There is no silver bullet. So to stop fighting plastic waste, we need to stop thinking, how do I check the box? And instead start thinking, how can I do everything, everywhere, all at once? And that's why we're so excited, and it's such an immense honor to be introducing our partnership with the Pet Sustainability Coalition. At rePurpose, we're really focusing our impact on the global hotspots of plastic waste. To solve this crisis, we're focusing in on global plastic pollution hotspots where plastic is being dumped into nature directly. And the reality is that there is a lot of waste management infrastructure here in the US or in Canada or in the UK, what we can call the global north. And as a result, while recycling might not be great, you see waste being managed and not being dumped into nature. Now, despite that, a waste that is often collected in North America is put on a ship, is not recycled domestically. It's often put on a shipping container and shipped halfway across the world to countries like India, Indonesia, even today. And this is a practice that's continued for the last 30 years. And of course, adding to the environmental burden that these countries already face, because they lack the resources to manage their own waste, let alone this influx of material from the rest of the world. This practice is not only unjust, but contributes heavily to pollution rates that harm the planet and all of us. So in response, at rePurpose, we've created the world's largest network of its kind of plastic recovery projects, which are protecting nature from plastic pollution in those regions where plastic is most leaking into nature and the oceans. Hopefully, through these brief glimpses and videos, you can see the tangible impact our projects are creating every single day in both fighting plastic waste and generating dignified livelihoods for the workers who are doing this important work while benefiting the communities that they serve. We've partnered with hundreds of brands to drive impact to date, recovering over 75 million pounds of plastic waste from nature already, including several brands that we're really grateful to have partnerships with in the pet industry, like Fresh Pet, Earth Animal, Fera Pets, and many others. And with these brands, we partner with them to invest in the collection and long-term waste management infrastructure in these regions where plastic is most leaking into nature, building technical expertise, professionalizing projects to drive sustainable impact, and recovering what's already leaked into nature. Now, of course, we're also not only enabling this impact directly, but verifying every single pound of plastic that flows through our project network to make sure that we can actually deliver impact that is being promised, and allow these businesses that we partner with to make credible claims from a storytelling perspective about the impact that they are driving. These projects are in the process supporting formal and dignified livelihoods for more than 10,000 waste workers and their families already. And in the process, we've brought waste management as a human right. I firmly believe that it should be a human right to over 1 million people for the very first time. And of course, this has the direct benefit of protecting coastlines and fragile natural ecosystems from plastic pollution. This protecting nature from plastic has, to all of the animal lovers in the room, the direct benefit of protecting the habitats of extremely endangered species. As Jim alluded to, the headline today was that when the bird that they found all of this plastic in was pressed, its dead body was pressed, it crunched. And that's something that we hope to avoid and protect animals from this scourge of plastic pollution. And so we're so grateful for this partnership with the Pet Sustainability Coalition for Plastic Recovery July. And so I wanted to just take a minute to explain what all of this means. Because, of course, with this initiative, we're going to be driving a lot of tangible impact aiming to recover 250,000 pounds of plastic waste from nature through this activation. But in the process, we also want to make that drive value to every single brand that participates. rePurpose will provide a will provide a holistic set of toolkits to help brands talk about the tangible impact that they're driving through their participation in the initiative. To enable this, we have first and foremost end-to-end traceability and transparency at the core of how we operate. Every single participating brand will know exactly where your impact is happening, and you will receive a detailed report on how much plastic exactly you have helped to recover, as well as how many workers have benefited from your contributions and the community benefits as well. All of this impact is fully verified and audited and can be confidently shared with consumers, with partners and retailers, employees, and any other stakeholder that you want to share the stories of these impact to. And at rePurpose, we also take pride in bringing this impact to life through vibrant visuals and compelling storytelling. We think it's not just important that you take tangible actions to create impact, but engage all of the stakeholders that care about this issue of plastic waste through the impact that you're driving. And so for that goal, we'll equip every participating brand with a full suite of ready-to-use resources, everything from milestone social media posts and reels to frequently asked questions and key messaging to help you share the story across channels. You can also use this internally to highlight the impact that you and your team are driving, because we've seen that plastic pollution is not only an important consumer issue, it's a key employee topic of concern as well, because this consciousness, it weighs on their consciousness that with every sale that they are driving, they are contributing to the plastic pollution issue. So I'm so grateful again for you all listening into this webinar, and invite your brand and your organization to join into Plastic Recovery July in whatever capacity you can, because together we can reduce waste, revive lives, and restore nature's balance. I'll pass it over back to you, Jim. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Adi. And those resources and the templates that Adi was mentioning or showing you there, they are so robust. And so we're happy to set up time with any brand that can meet with our member experience team and Adi's team to dive deeper into what you'll have and see how easy and turnkey it'll be for you and your marketing team to tell the story. So how does it work, and what does it cost, and what do brands get? So our sponsorship levels, they start at $1,000. So at $1,000, you'll be basically any financial contribution, you will double that for the amount of pounds that are recovered. So $1,000, you can confidently claim 2,000 pounds recovered, and it goes all the way up to Trailblazer at $100,000. That would be 200,000 pounds. There's different benefits to the sponsorship levels. I won't go through every single one of them here, but you can see that they're very robust. Ultimately, this is an incredible, measurable impact, verified impact, and incredible marketing tool for you to communicate with your consumers, because you all know that consumers care about packaging. So we've already had some great commitments. We literally announced this about 2 weeks ago. And so we already have a bunch of brands and suppliers that have stepped up. And we're hoping after this webinar, we will get a lot more. And I also know, I will tell you that we had this idea, like Adi and I just started talking, I think around March. And then this idea really got into effect about a month ago. And so we know that a lot of your budgets have already been allocated or built for 2025. And so I fully expect that participation might be a little bit lower for some brands because of budgetary constraints, but please know that we're so excited about this, that this will continue to be an activation for us in years to come. So as you build out 2026, please know that this will be an incredible option for you. And we're going to prove to you how widely this gets into the media, and employee engagement and consumer engagement will definitely become a reality. The last part that I wanted to mention that we haven't before is, so there is the potential for you to join at the company level and sponsor anywhere from $1,000 up to $100,000. There's also the ability for you to empower your consumers and your employees to join. So we have essentially a payment link where an employee or customer can offset their plastic paw print, is what we're calling it. So we have recommendations in that link for the amount of plastic that's typically generated from a small, a medium, or a large dog, as well as a cat. So even if you can't participate at a corporate level, we really hope that all of our PSC members will contribute and try to drive this through their employees as well as the consumer, because again, as a coalition, we can do a lot more than just one company or one group of employees on their own. So it'll be a little bit of a friendly competition. So every week we will show which brand has the highest amount of plastic recovered and offset. And so it'll be a fun little thing that you can activate your consumers as well as your employees. So we hope that everybody will get involved with this. So I'm going to shift now into the Q&A. So let's get that going. It looks like most of them have been answered, but maybe if one, Reeser, Allison, or Alex, what has not been answered yet? And if it's all been answered, that's fantastic, but.
I think there are some answers worth saying out loud. We've had some really good questions in the Q&A.
Awesome. Take it away.
I think there's one question about kind of in the transition from store drop-offs to curbside recyclability of soft plastic. This is going to be really confusing for customers. So will that transition actually lead to a bigger need for plastic recovery? I'm happy to kind of say what Meg said in the written answer, but Adi, do you want to give an answer to that as well?
Yeah, I think I keep going back to this everything everywhere all at once, right? The reality is we need to be acting a lot more with urgency to do whatever we can. So of course, recycle ready packaging, store drop-off programs and take-back programs are all really important to invest in. And I think I have no doubt that the domestic recycling infrastructure is going to improve in the US, especially with the adoption of extended producer responsibility regulations that are coming in, which is going to provide a lot of financing and infrastructure, catalyze a lot of infrastructure developing in the US for recycling. But at the same time, I again think of these as two sides of the same coin, right? There is such a historical mess of plastic waste that we've already created over the last 5 decades that we need to be thinking beyond just getting the packaging that we produce from now onwards to be recyclable, and also look at what we can do to clean up the mess that's already been made. So I do think of them as both sides of the same coin, both aiming towards this same problem being solved in different ways, right? And I think it's important that both are adopted. So yeah, I think that's what I want to emphasize message around is that we need both upstream innovation in terms of the packaging design itself, and also downstream interventions that brands support, which by the way are very also tangible to explain to consumers, right? Like that's the one benefit I see of plastic recovery is that it's not that complex to message. I think often packaging innovations can get lost in the weeds in the minds of the consumer, who has thrown at them a variety of technical specifications in terms of the packaging, recyclability, and so on. Whereas saying that your brand is supporting plastic recovery from nature is much easier to visualize and explain to the end consumer as well. So I see that as the added benefit.
That was going to be my +1, is that the consumer education piece of this is so important too, because as we're making improvements, they kind of cascade throughout the whole system, and it will be different, but better, and it's more interconnected. There's actually a question that we got in the Q&A that I think is more of a crowdsourced sort of question. There's one, so everyone should be able to see it in the chat too. So I'll just say it out loud and people can type their answers. So at Nature's Logic, this question comes from David. When we introduced certified plastic neutral packaging, it received incredibly positive consumer feedback and notably lifted sales. Has anyone else gathered consumer feedback on verified plastic action? So again, if you in the audience have feedback on that, please type it into the regular chat, and we can start a little discussion. But I guess Adi or Jim, do either of you have that data or anything to say about that question?
I can jump in, Jim, but if you want to.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Absolutely. We've done a lot of, we've partnered with about 500 or so brands to date now, and most of them have engaged in recovering plastic waste from nature through our project network, and done so, of course, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's helping their business from a perspective of engaging with consumers on this issue of plastic pollution that is so important in their minds, right? I'll break this answer down in a few sort of composite parts. One, just the importance of plastic in the minds of the consumer. Plastic today is the most important environmental sustainability issue in the minds of consumers. not just in the US, but worldwide, because it's even more so important than climate change. Because there's no denying plastic pollution, right? Everyone can see that it's a problem, and there's no two-sidism around plastic pollution in nature, particularly when it's choking birds and animals. So it's an issue that's super important in the minds of consumers. And increasingly so, they are looking through a lot of the case studies of the brands we partnered with, they're looking for businesses that are doing something in the right direction in solving this issue that they care about, right? And so we've seen that in investing in plastic recovery has been a very immediate way for businesses to take action on this issue that their consumers care about, because the alternatives, the formatting their packaging and upending their supply chains to do so, is going to take time, right? And getting to plastic free, of course, is the goal. But we think that this is the most holistic picture that you can have as a brand to your consumers, that you are doing whatever you can internally to reduce plastic use and rethink your packaging in a sustainable format going forward. But while that's happening, you're immediately taking action and doing that through funding plastic recovery from nature. And we've seen that holistic story be really well received by consumers, right? They immediately get that, okay, this is a business that has met my level of concern on this issue that is so important to me.
Yeah, I agree, Adi. I think that we need to be honest with our consumers and tell them that even though we're using recycled ready packaging, the infrastructure doesn't currently exist for it to get recycled, only in select locations and select store drop-off locations. And so in order to take action, this is why PSC literally partnered with rePurpose Global, is because now you can confidently talk to your consumers that you're addressing part of the issue. And we still have a ways to go. We still need to build municipal curbside recycling for flexible film packaging, but there's a lot of steps that need to happen until we get there. And the ultimate vision is designing for circularity from the beginning. But this is the immediate beneficial impact that we can take right now. And I think that consumers resonate with that. They know that you can't solve the world's problems tomorrow, but you can take meaningful steps today.
And I think that I'll just end with one more note, Jim. I think what we've seen brands benefit the most is with the act of bringing their consumers along for this journey, right? And one example I'll share is that of Grove Collaborative. I would imagine that many of you have heard of this. It's a retailer. It's a very plastic-focused retailer, right? And they've done a lot of things to invite their consumer along for that journey, including giving their consumers the ability to contribute towards plastic recovery initiatives themselves. And they've seen such positive traction from that holistic way of getting their consumers involved in that entire journey that the business is taking on in terms of fighting plastic waste.
That's a great point. I mean, I think that's part of all sustainability, is like, that's a point we try to drive home to all of our members, is that you should bring your consumers along for your journey. You don't have to be perfect today, but you can show them how you're making positive steps.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah.
And maybe we have time for more. So if people have any more burning questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. But we did get a question. What would you answer to a leadership team who says that because we do not sell our products to certain parts of the world, basically, why are we doing this? Again, Meg typed out a wonderful answer in the Q&A. And I think in reading that answer, the biggest thing is plastic waste doesn't respect borders. So it is really a global issue. And so let's solve it globally. But I'll open the floor if either of you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in here, because this is something that we see most of the brands that we partner with, of the 500 or so brands that we partner with, most of them are in North America, right? And a lot of them frame this as not action that they're creating on plastic in India or Indonesia, but they really see it as them making a dent on the global plastic pollution issue, right? Because once plastic reaches the oceans, it becomes everyone's problem. And so they are standing really for solving for this. And again, in the eyes of consumers, the important issue is not plastic in their local municipality, because they don't see plastic trash in general. If you're in the US, you don't see plastic trash openly on the sides of the streets like you do in other parts of the world, for example, in my home country. And so for them, the important issue is plastic pollution in nature, right? And so if we want to solve for that problem, we need to go where that problem is actually first and foremost being created, right? Where plastic is leaking into nature from. And that's why we have this globalist perspective. But by no means do we see that as the only thing that a business is doing. I think that's why I come back to this holistic picture of everything that the business is doing to support domestic recycling, to support their own packaging redesign in their own control, while also taking a stand on this global issue that their consumers care deeply about. So to answer that question very directly, my response would be that if you are trying to sell this into your leadership teams and they have pushback on, oh, why is this impact happening in another part of the world? Really think of it as impact, right? I think tangible impact on this pollution issue, which is at the end of the day what your consumer cares about as well, right? And so I hope that that answers, but Jim, please jump in if you have thoughts.
You said it well, Adi. It's perfect.
Okay, and one final note, there was a question about the employee program, the individual contributions. That will be updated on our website today. So just give that page a refresh and there should be updated options for participating that way. And thank you for flagging that.
Yep.
That's it for the Q&A.
All right. Well, I will just close here and just say thank you, all of you, for joining us today. As we wrap up, I want to leave with one theme that I have been shouting the whole year, that collaboration is truly our superpower. Individual actions, they do matter. Every product decision that you make matters. Every sustainable choice that you make matters. Every pound of plastic that you individually recover matters. But when we come together as an industry, as a community, and as a coalition, something incredible happens. The impact doesn't just add up, it multiplies. And nature shows us this all the time. A single drop of water can do very little on its own, but many drops moving together with a purpose, they carve canyons. A single ant is fragile, but a colony, it can literally move mountains. And that's the power of alignment. That's the power of collective action. That's the power of the pet sustainability, working with rePurpose Global, working with our 200 members worldwide. So Plastic Recovery July is not just about tapping into a multiplier effect. So one company participating, it's fantastic, it's inspiring. 10 companies is some progress and it's great, but 200 companies worldwide, now that's truly a movement. So my call to each of you today is become part of this collective wave of change. Commit your brand, spread the word, rally your teams. Whether you contribute $500 or $50,000, every dollar recovers plastic. It supports ethical wages and drives industry-wide momentum. And we can't do this alone, but together we can achieve something far greater than any of us could imagine. So let's not just make this July about plastic recovery, but about recovering our shared belief in what's possible when we work together as one. So thank you so much. Let's go make waves, and everyone have a fantastic and safe Memorial Day. Thank you again.